Did everybody ready to go? Well, Brian will call it here. We'll call this meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Ellison?
Here.
Mr. Beverly?
Here.
Mrs. Maxey? Here. Mr. Walmart?
Here.
Mr. Moon?
Here.
Mr. Reiger? Mr. Ward?
All right. With item 3, approval of the agenda.
So we like to just move the item D under new business to act after executive session.
We can just move that. Anything else?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Perfect. Audience visitors, being that there is none, we're passing that one. Treasurer's report.
Hey, I just wanted to know if you all saw that you received the final for 2015. I'm happy to have that done finally. And just wanted to give it, this is how you ended financially for 2015 at $25,772,927. We are working on getting us, we start working on getting us caught up now for the rest of the month, and hopefully we will be caught up with the next board meeting. I just had anybody have any questions on this treasurer's report?
So now that you're caught up, thank you, by the way, and congratulations.
Just to 2015.
What's the plan that we've got a candidate for a treasurer to bring them on board?
We did hire one. Yeah, I talked with him, and I believe we're estimating that March 1st that he'll come on as the treasurer and start doing the report, sending the reports to him.
Mark was the one that worked with us through the audit stuff.
Right. He's gonna help next week get caught up with the rest of the items. And the audit, they came up and did some of the last on-site stuff last Thursday. And we're in balance with them, so we're both in balance together. So they will finish up the audit and hopefully present it next month.
Did Mark help with a lot of the balancing for 2015?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Doing the journal entries and stuff.
Mark seems to love the problem solving of this stuff, so
Yeah, he's,
very sharp-minded.
yeah, he is.
All right, thank you. And then we go to the superintendent's report. I got several things. Let's first start with Jerry. Jerry's here tonight. We put together a new website. We had taken a lot of suggestions from communications committees as well as other committees and other feedback from administrators, staff, people to kind of make our website a little more user-friendly. Jerry has worked very, very hard on it, and I have heard good things about it. So Jerry just wanted to kind of give you a quick overview, give you a chance to ask any questions on the new website. So I'll turn it over to Jerry.
So yeah, it's, like I said, many people ask for a change. Teachers, parents, many other people around the community wanted a new website. So we wanted to have a new professional look and improve our web presence. So when people would look at North Boone from the outside, they'd see a nice professional organization. So you see the old website, here's our new website, which I'm sure many of you have been on already. So next slide. better communication was one of the major changes we wanted to have. So we put an event calendar on the front page that just it shows you what's going on throughout the district. A little scrolling right here. You can't really see it, sorry. But we put that on there. Oh, there you go. We put some of the more popular leagues right here, front page. Leagues that people come to every day, parents, staff. And then our Twitter feed, of course, part of the communication part. We want better placement. We want, the popular things to be put in the very front of the page. So of course, we put all the schools right there in the open, and give the staff resources to use on that every day. And then we put a lot of we restructured the menus on the top for ease of access. Want to give it a modern feel. We cleaned up the policies and made everything real smooth and easy to look at. Next slide. We're going to have a uniform website. Before we had a couple of different websites within our website, and so to give it a uniform feel, we took all the websites and we put them into one format. So then, if you're on the high school website, you can quickly go and access district items instead of having to back out of the website and go back into the main website to access district items. So that's the old SMS. Next slide. In tech, it used to take a lot of work to modify the website. Can't really see it, but this is pure code, and I would have to manipulate that code to make it as simple as a change. Where now I can just quickly go over to a Word type document and change something and click update, and good. I can change things real fast without errors. This also gives, for the next slide, I can give page owners around the district, like so principals or secretaries, access, so using some passwords to go on this website and make their own modifications. So right now I'm working with different schools and departments on showing them how to modify their own pages by signing in with their own username and password. And those are some of the major changes that we put in place for the website. Any questions?
Where do you think you're going? First of all, really nice job.
Well, thank you.
I was messing with it over the weekend. Are there any other enhancements planned for it going forward?
I've just been working with the district and seeing what people want. We didn't really have very much interest in it before, and now people are really, expanding on what they want to do with their sites. Nothing like big or extraordinary now.
Do you see Schedule Star from the high school being able to integrate with that scrolling page on the front? I notice there's no high school practice schedules or any activities at the high school scrolling right now.
We did discuss that, and there's so many items on the Schedule Star calendar that we thought it would clutter the rest of the district. We'd have to take a long time to look for any other item. And so that's why we just put an athletics link right on the front page where it takes right to Schedule Star, and you'll be able to see those calendars.
We talked about that with the number of events and the constant changing of it, that rather than have it right there, just a link that got to it quickly, we're trying to make it user-friendly, quick access.
Do you foresee there being a portal there to do online registration?
We've talked about online registration. I'll bring that up a little more in my superintendent's report. I don't know that we're ready for online registration yet, but boy, eventually, if we can get to that point, I know a lot of districts are going, I'd love to see online registration down the line.
Jerry, do each of the principals have their own, I haven't actually visited the schools yet, do they have a scrolling of just their calendar events in the upper right hand?
On their own page, you want to go to the district website?
Like if we click on Cape Breton,
Yeah, they should have.
Cape Breton
They all
doesn't
have
have
their own calendars.
They have a calendar, and it comes up as a calendar.
Yeah, of solely their own. So if you go back up to the top here and click on Apron. I believe each layout does have good scroll down here,
Calendars up.
or to the right.
Mine, I think the resolution was
This
kind
way
of the
up.
projector is a different
Okay.
format than what
So-
everybody else sees, but,
Regardless, Jerry, when I'm assuming that
Oh, there
Allison,
you go. So they do have the calendar. That's just, oh, that should be just their school's calendar. Or the calendar. Go ahead. Look it up.
Are you talking about like how we can, if we can add our own events?
yeah, my point was, they've got their own calendar, they can get on and add their own events. Is it gonna be as easy, hopefully, as when they load it, somehow Google recognizes it and puts it automatically in the scroll?
Oh, yes, totally. It's all integrated.
Okay.
Automatic.
And was you thinking on the main district page that having its own calendar will, that maybe at the bottom or something would be too busy and the scroll is better?
It's too big, yeah, that's why we just have that day scrolling events.
Okay.
But if you, while on the main page, there's a link to a larger calendar that does show. You go to the main page, sorry.
At the bottom, if you click Google Calendar,
It's school calendars. This one should show all the schools' calendars.
oh, okay.
And then,
That's the
Yeah,
actual
okay.
printed, like, Word document though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
well, no, there's those, but for some reason, I don't know why it's not showing up on the screen. There should be a large calendar right there.
Yeah.
Showing, the entire district. I don't know why.
There it
It's a
is.
big Google Calendar.
Yeah.
It's all color coded.
I think it's confusing, especially in mobile mode where those aren't acceptable for some reason.
Because if you got it right up with your computer.
And then you can check what schools you want to see. Say you only want to see, two of the schools calendar that you have a student at school A and B. You can check those two schools and it'll only show those items. There's a little how-to on the bottom of the page.
And as, let's just say someday we do get online registration, one of those main buttons, most used buttons will just pop up and say school registration here.
Absolutely.
And then you can take it back down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very easy to do now with this new website.
Amy thinks you also probably.
Oh, shit, yeah. If there's a page, or if there's the instruction system, as I was saying earlier, you can see if a kid at the high school and the middle school, you can uncheck those other schools and just see those calendars all the same.
And updating it, will that be your,
The calendar?
updating anything, like, let's just say the images?
Right now, it's just me, but eventually I want to get a lot of other people on board, so if they want something now, they can change it right away. That's another strength of this type of website. If they want to.
The other thing, Jerry's been very aggressive about trying to get pictures in.
Yeah.
So we're putting fresh pictures on the screen as much as possible. Tomorrow, my administrative meeting, I've got to remind them yet again, so to keep putting them in.
Nice, Jerry.
You good?
Yeah. Thank you, Jerry. Wonderful job. So, the next thing that I have is next month, I'd like to bring back the academic calendar for you guys to approve. With that, also talk a little bit about the fees. One of the things that I've run past my administration and also past the secretaries is moving registration up to an earlier time period, especially for our current students. What it would do is it would really help us with both for planning and setting bus routes and just making sure that we have the right things in place moving forward for the summer instead of holding on until the beginning of August and making things tight in a time crunch at the end. Most people seem open to it. One of the things that we discussed was in an effort to encourage people to register a little earlier was possibly giving them some sort of reduced fee for early registration. And I guess I would ask right now if the board has any information they'd like brought back for registration, or if they have anything that they would like me to present to them or look into so that I could bring back some information for you. And if you don't have it tonight, feel free to email me too as well. So again, moving the registration up earlier for our current students, still having a new student registration probably the first part of August when everybody returns their student. I'm trying to get our current students in a little quicker and having the paperwork in and everything done and signed and ready to go.
Would it be possible to give us a comparison of some other comparable school districts' fee structures?
Sure. We'll look for similar districts in the area, if that's okay.
It's pretty much a given though, Mike, that the same protocol that's followed for registration this year will be the next year.
Not necessarily. One of the things we talked about doing was just to help cut down on lines and save people times, and was to do something with mail-in registration K through 5, and our 5th graders walking in into 6th. No matter what avenue you pick, there's always some drawbacks to it, but we did talk about possibly looking back into mail-in registration. For our 7th and 8th grade, 9th through high school, we talked about the format that was used this year because of all the athletic fees and the different classes and coursework and stuff that they got to sign up for and different paperwork that they have in, that format almost suits them real well with the format that we have this year, but changing the dates and moving them sooner. Assessment update. I apologize for the black and white one that went out of the board packet. Kind of tough to read because it is kind of color coded, but I did provide that. I colored one in the packet for you. Once again, our scores, a lot of our scores show up in the green range. On Wednesday, we had Mary Benowitz come here from ECRA. And as I was explaining a little bit earlier at the meeting, this is the second year I've really gotten to use this data. A lot of our scores would show up in the green, and I was talking with Don also a little bit about it yesterday. Those green scores, what they're showing, or those test scores are showing, is what our typical growth is, our expected growth is for the district. They base it on a propensity score. They roll all the different tests that you see on the second page into this propensity score, and they give you a prediction of what your growth would be based on the history and the history of tests that you've taken. It's based on standard deviations. If you turn to page 3 and just kind of walk you through it, I'll take Capron for an example. 103 students, obviously there's more students than that, but that 103 students is what they can use their sample scores for. 50% of them, or 53% of them met the benchmark. 16% were in the high growth for meeting the benchmark. 66 were in the expected growth, and 18% were in the low growth. When you get over to the growth portion, it hits the green, and then there's a bar down below that kind of tells you where the range is for what each of those colors are. 0 is the absolute expected growth. So for all subjects, we really hit our expected growth by this, by the statistics that came back from ECRA up top. The Capron was at a negative 0.03. That's not really a percentage, but it's your, we were 3/100ths away from hitting the expected growth. And that's based on standard deviation points. So that's kind of how you go across and read these charts. Like I said, it rolls all of the tests that we take and data into it, and then takes that into consideration when it's talking about our expected overall growth. And again, that was what we went over Wednesday. We talked with Mary on that and those test scores. The next piece now is when you go into those portals, this is kind of an overview. Those portals can really break down by tests, by individuals. You can scale back into subgroups. You can really break down and take a look at that information. In fact, it's probably more information than you could probably ever get through. But they're very, very detailed. And again, these are the overall growth. These are the summary pages that I presented to you today. How about my administrators? Anything you guys would add with the growth scores and the summaries? Did I explain it well?
Yeah, I think, like Mary, you said, we had a discussion Wednesday, green is status quo. We're happy to see green. But administratively, we had discussions that we don't think green is good enough, because that is just doing what they say they should be doing based on a formula created by multiple assessments. Whereas our target is to get into the blue, which is higher than that expected growth.
We said, what we talked about is if you wanted to start to close gaps for students and start to push students further along. We wanted to have more of these lights in the, or more of these colors in the blue. So that's some of the stuff that we're talking about, is we'd love to see more things in the blue. Now we got to take the data that we have and start to impact instruction and student learning and make that move forward.
Yeah, because you're really looking at the growth score that you see is the difference between their actual achievement and what's expected of them historically based on their test scores. So just looking at the ECRA data here, if there's a negative score, it doesn't necessarily indicate that they're losing knowledge or not gaining. Essentially, it just basically says that they did not learn as much as their peers historically have shown. So it just looks at like Dr. Greenlee was saying about the propensity scores, and I look at all that past data. The difference is where they're actually achieving versus where they're expected to achieve, and that's where you see the deviations from zero, either plus or minus, based on the expected growth. Are they achieving what they're expected to do? And that's like Jamie said, we want to get into that blue range where they're showing better than expected growth over their achievement.
Heather, Jill, or anybody, just for my personal benefit, I was trying to think, wait, this is the first time we've taken the PARCC testing, so how could they show expected growth? But you're saying, does ECRA or PARCC somehow look back at past data from other testing, project that forward?
The park was not included in this.
Okay.
Actually, no, in this
Oh,
report,
this
it
one
is,
was, oh,
and it was hard for them to explain. It's a formula that ECRA has put together and
They
wrapped in.
include their data, they say from the previous year, but they look at, their data from first grade, second grade, third, fourth grade student, first, second, third grade data is in there. Ames Web, map data, ISAT scores, which are retired.
And this is ECRA's expected growth, which
Right.
is sort of a pretty large standard, not PARCC's expected.
No.
No, not the part.
This is PARCC data, but it's ECRA's expected growth.
It's
from
based
the-
on our historical data has
From
additional.
all those
every-
tests.
So it's based on what North Boone's historical data has shown. Are we making gains based on how we have performed historically?
Okay. And am I correct in that PARCC's standards were much higher than any of the other testing? So that's factored
Yes.
into this, and we might see an expected growth of 0. Because they were performing well on the other tests, but the PARCC test was higher, so they actually expected them to not see any growth because the expectation was higher, the standard was higher.
Yes.
Yes?
and am I saying this correctly, that different assessments are actually weighted differently? So one assessment may be valued higher, and not percentage.
Yeah, because for example, we take MAPS 3 times a year as a benchmark, or PARCC is a one-time snapshot. So
So it would
I'm
be
assuming
more,
those tests that we test frequently, Ames Web and such, they play a higher role in creating a propensity score to say historically, here's how we should based on their peers.
PARCC is rolled into there, and like you said, those standards are higher on it, and we did kind of ask that. Mary said really that goes back into the formula and the calculations that their statisticians and stuff
Yeah.
put together. She couldn't explain it, but there's no doubt about it, the PARCC is a more rigorous test.
Do you think there'd just be some other metric than an expected growth of 0, that they somehow present that differently? Because anybody who isn't in the know that sees that is not going to see that as something good. I would expect it growth to be 0, but I guess I can write my mind.
Because that's just, we're doing what we have been doing. We're not doing any better, we're not
0
doing any
means that
worse.
is exactly what, based on their prediction, what I expected.
How we should have done.
I should have said. They would expect it to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So if you were to look at this student by growth chart, it says percent met benchmark. Is in ACRA's algorithms that they use to compile this data, they set a benchmark for where kids in a K-4 setting, for instance, a K-prep, or kids in a 9-12 setting would be at the high school, and said that effectively that 50%, that's the benchmark that they used for that number to associate where 53% of the K-prep kids were versus 30% of high school kids were compared to other high schools.
The benchmark is set by national standards. So if it's a MAP assessment, it's the NWA nationwide standards that ECRA doesn't set the benchmark. And it's looking at compared to their peers, what percentage of them are meeting the benchmark.
So if I read this right, then what we're saying is that our high school at 30% is already 20% behind the average nationwide. And that if we just maintain that green dot out there, growth, that all we'll ever have is 30% of our high school kids getting there.
And that's where that status quo. That's why if we can, and when we talk deviations, we need to not only focus on those lower kids, but the higher kids too, because by shifting them all up is gonna shoot that mean up. But the only way to do that is getting kids into the blue. And it takes out of these overall pot of all our kids in district, and we start looking at individual students. And that's how we can kind of drive those kids. Just to say we want green or blue is not gonna be as effective. We have to pinpoint those students that are causing the overall averages, if you will, in the green and the yellow, to turn those. So no, you're absolutely right. If we stay where we are now with the greens, we're not gonna.
That's how we've been performing historically at the high school level for those assessments.
So then we use this data then to begin to drive what decision making?
School improvement process. It's gotta be there. You gotta use some surveys. You gotta use this data, your MAPS data. You're gonna break this down and then start to say, what are our school improvement initiatives for a district and what are our school improvement initiatives per building to start moving some of those arrows. The next thing that the administrative team and I, we've talked about is what does our school improvement process now look like for next year? We want to try to get us all on the same page, talking the same language and doing the same things for school improvement and school improvement initiatives, walking for the start of next school year.
School improvement's pretty vague though, is that encompass lots of things, curriculum, staff development, sort of the sectors of the range, strategic.
It's going to take a look into your data. It's going to take a look into how you're funneling money for staff development and all those things. Yeah, it's vague, but that's why you start to pull the data out and look for similar trends.
Is there any measure or assessment that starts to get at which of those school improvement factors, components needs the most boosting up?
I know what I used a lot. I used a lot of the maps and then some of the written breakdowns, what we could get from there. And sometimes those will talk to you about the concepts where maybe you struggle. I'm not sure how, is that what you guys are
I
typically
mean, I know us
used to?
at Poplar Grove, we're using Rising Star right now to set up our school improvement plan. And that does a nice job as a committee. You break down and you identify which areas are of the highest concern. And then it identifies your top 5 areas that the staff felt were of most importance in driving your school improvement plan. So that's been nice because we can then say, here's something we need to work on, or majority of the staff, or not enough staff. There isn't a lot in terms of data in Rising Star, but it does allow you to identify which areas, whether it's curriculum, whether it's staffing, whether it's leadership, what have you. It allows you to identify those areas, and then as staff, it focuses on those, and those are the ones that you use to drive your school improvement goals. So for professional development and such for your staff.
So does your school curriculum or your school improvement plan then align with the high school's school improvement plan? And if they don't, then how do we use all this data so that we can track what we're doing, what adjustments we made to it, and how it impacts how the kids ended up in high school?
It used to, because when we had No Child Left Behind and AYP, we were required to do Rising Star. I believe that was one of our mandated requirements was Rising Star. That has since fallen by the wayside, so we're not required to do it. Every school right now is just kind of doing their own thing. We're doing Rising Star. I'm not quite sure about the other buildings, but that's something that we, talking with Mike, we would like to get everybody on the same page, so that we all are working towards similar goals, so that the improvements we make at Poplar Grove then transcend to the UE, and then the middle, and then the high school as well.
We're a little bit all over the board with what our school improvement plan processes are.
It's the same struggle that I have in my job. We collect all this data on the agriculture side, but we end up with so much data, it's hard for people to begin without a plan to figure out what improvements they're making to their operations and get them to the ultimate goal. It seems like we're in the same place here. We have all this data, we've been collecting it for a while. We still haven't really began to move the kids that need to be moved the most.
Then you got other initiatives too that are pressing for time and professional development too. When we throw in the para committee that we know next year we've got to implement student growth into evaluation system. We've had 2 meetings now, we're moving along very well on those. But, I mean, that's gonna also now, all of a sudden, grab for professional development time. And it does, it starts to get complicated, but that's why I'd like for us to get on the same page and pick some same initiatives so that we're all kind of supporting and pushing the same thing.
Especially within the K4 setting, because then it doesn't matter, Capron, Poplar Grove, Manchester, you know, that K4 setting, we're all funneling into the upper. You know, if we have that, we're on the same page with our goals, then, you know, we have diverse students, diverse population, but when we get up to that, the UE in the middle school, Jamie will be able to see, look at what they have, you know, they've set that plan into place at the lower grades, and we'll have that some similar patterns, whichever school the kids come from.
Is that 30% end up being something you'd have a serious heart-to-heart with Jake about and ask Jake, does this fall into any subject matter? Does this fall into any?
Without me even saying.
I mean, if
think
it's park,
Jake
I mean,
takes it
I
hard.
can speak for park. I administered the park last year at the high school. The students did not take it seriously. Not 80% probably didn't fill out one question. They'd sit for 3 hours and just sit there. They would write random things in their book. They did not take any sort of ownership of that assessment. It was very frustrating on our end, watching them, you know, like we spent all this time organizing it, setting it up, to them to just close the booklet and sit there. Because social media was saying you can walk out, you don't have to take it seriously, it doesn't mean anything. The buy-in was extremely low at the high school, even with teachers trying to push it. So I could see if that the piece you're looking at, I can't see it, is for park, that's why that score is so low. Because the students, unfortunately, being it was the first time it was administered, they just did not have any buy-in. It was after ACT, it was at the end of the year. They felt, what is this gonna do for me? Why do I have to take it?
It's good to know. I mean, that's a great explanation, because maybe Ed's thinking the same thing I'm thinking. Well, do we need to support somebody better? Is there a problem? And that's a good explanation.
You know, and in the media now, 243 states have opted out of park. We're down to 6 states in the district, or 7 states in the District of Columbia. So we have these parents, and I've already had calls from parents this year, because parents cannot opt their kids out. You cannot call and say, you know, she's out. No, but the kids can opt themselves out. And that is out there. And there's nothing, all we can do is present them the test. That's it. You know, so there is that issue.
You're fighting a little bit of that message
Correct.
where you can't maybe take it. There was a big push on that one.
Is that what happened at the UE
As far as,
park test? Was a disaster?
yeah, I mean, I'm being very angry specifics to that, if that's what the case was.
Yeah, I did not see that at the K4 or 3-4 grade. Those kids really, they were frustrated with the mechanics of the assessment because there were glitches, lots of little glitches that since now have been really cleaned up. But I felt that the students were really attempting their best, even with an unknown of what score or what will this do for me. But I did not, speaking on Manchester's side, I did not see see that aspect of the students. I did have a lot of parent questions of, well, what if I just have my kids stay home for the 2 weeks? And so I had a lot of parent questions, but the students I felt were,
Gave good effort.
yeah, they were really trying.
The UE scores.
I spoke to you about 6 weeks ago about that. Is there any things you're gonna present in the future while we're having the 5-6 level that we can maybe make some changes for next year?
Yeah, I can see the frustration on your guys' faces. Certainly didn't intend for you to get defensive.
No,
My
it,
question
I was
just-
heartbroken when they, you spent all this time and then, there were kids that we had to give consequences because they were drawing inappropriate photos in it. And it's like, you guys, your names are attached to this. It's going to the state. This is representative of our school and of yourself. They just, at the high school level, it was a different assessment. It looked for different skills than they'd ever seen before. And some of them didn't know how to do it because it was looking more at Common Core versus what ACT does. And they, instead of attempting, it was, I don't know how to do this. And they just kind of shut down. I can't speak for the lower levels, I wasn't there, but I can speak for the high school that it strictly was a motivation and an effort thing on the end. There were a lot that tried really hard, and there were honor students that tried and they struggled with just the makeup of the test and the format of the test.
I think my questions were more directed in, do we have an organized plan on how to address this? And, I think that I hear back is that we're trying to get an organized plan together. Certainly, I hope that might keep us in the loop about how we get our hands around where we're going.
I think there's some great ideas out there. I mean, you can look at Twitter, you can look at, there's a lot of great motivational things that a lot of schools are doing to get the kids to buy in to park, especially at the elementary level, whether it's videos or some sort of incentive sort of thing. There's a lot of things out there, just getting us all looking at those and seeing what can we do to motivate our kids, to get them to see the significance of it. And I won't say try, but it's replaced the ISAT. That's what like a lot of them didn't get. Like, this isn't going away, guys. This is here for the next 4 years. This is your test, and it measures show us what you know, sort of thing. So.
Jamie, did you? And I'm putting you on the spot. I don't mean to do this, but did you hear much feedback from your teachers?
Yeah.
From UE, like what they thought?
Yes, we've had conversations, and it was heavy 6th grade, very similar to what you were saying. A lot of times too, and they were beat up, and this is a quote from the teachers, because there was 2 testing windows last year. This year there's only 1. I mean, it's still 7-hour tests. A couple of them were 120 minutes, 2 hours. But the kids were just beat up.
Performance-based, yeah.
Correct.
Performance.
Once they hit that EOI at the end of year 1 last year, they were just beat up. So I mean,
Did you guys also wedge a MAPS test in there in the middle of that too?
last year.
Yes.
So
And that's why our schedule for this year, when we had talked about it, we kind of strategically planned what tests were more valuable data-wise for us on how we scheduled it. So we did schedule MAPS before we have PARC, just because that is so much, that we take so much more information out of it. So we are having our MAPS window before our PARC window. But I
It will
think
back
that-
up to AP, so at the high school,
Right.
I'm not sure which assessments Jake has chosen to administer. It may be freshman English. It's administered based on the course, not the grade level, so it's anyone taking Algebra 1. It will back up to AP testing again. So you are running, some students will, that's just the window that PARC has set up for us to administer. So there are always some conflicts, unfortunately.
I think the one window assessment rather than two windows, I think will be incredibly beneficial, and I think the kids will feel less stress on that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, what? We just took this. You're telling us we're taking it again? And that was really, to have to sit there and I know, just try your best. So I think that will also help.
We can bring something back on. Talk more about the PARC performance and what to do.
Just for the record, I think I had some comments that when I asked about Jake, and will Jake get to the root of this? Not that we need to get Jake to the root of this, but do we have a plan?
I know,
What can we
just-
do? That didn't come out like,
No,
we want
no.
Okay,
Jake's frustrated.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
that sounds
You can say
incredibly frustrating. I've never even thought about that. It actually blows my mind to think like, man, when we took tests, we could have done the same thing, couldn't we? We didn't have to take those, but.
It just was ingrained, like, that's a responsibility, you take tests.
Wow.
Good question. Next item that I had, WOLD. We were initially hoping that WOLD could be here tonight to present findings from the 10-year life safety survey. They are not quite ready. What we will need to do is when they are ready, set up a facilities meeting, and they'll be able to present them there at a facilities meeting, and then we can bring something back to the board in February. One of the things I do want to let the board know is that we use WOLD for life safety. However, Cashman Installer is our board-approved architect. So as we move forward, that is one thing that we may want to consider. If we're not looking to use Cashman Installer, the board likely to pursue a different direction or put a process in place to pick an architect. But as of right now, Cashman Installer is our architect, adopted by the board.
There's no like 2-year cycle where that comes up every 2 years for renegotiation, is it? It's just if the
that
board
decides
decides or
if
has
they're
it.
ready to change.
Is that something we can take back to the facilities committee, make a recommendation to the board on?
Sure, we can do that, we'll work with you on that. On the process. Sure, we can do that. I got two smaller ones. Last year in the spring, we adopted a new GPA formula for our high schools, or for the high school. We are having one heck of a time getting that formula to work within Power School. We are out to a consultant right now. I don't know if the consultant can get it to work in Power School. So Jake and I may be having to look at a backup plan. So far GPAs have not been on the report cards. We have sent a letter home notifying parents that we're having trouble getting that formula to work. But I will start getting
What
posted.
was that again? I
The
didn't.
GPA formula that was approved last spring will not work. We can't get it to work right or set it up right in Power School. Power School has its limitations. So right now, we have it off to a consultant to try to get that sorted out and solved. I don't know what the possibility is going to be. If we can't, we'll probably have to do something with an Excel spreadsheet and import it manually. But Jake is working on that, and I just wanted to give you guys an update that we're struggling with that. But hopefully moving forward on here very soon with Plan B. If Plan A does not work, it'd be nice if our software would take care of it, but it's not working. So,
Speaking of that, Mike, is our learning management system also something that comes up on a cycle, or when does the contract end? Is everybody pleased with Power School? Is there a desire to move on to something different? I don't know if Power School is
It's
actually a learning management system.
The SIS?
Okay, so SIS is what
Yeah.
and I think,
We're year on that.
yeah, I would imagine we're year to year on that, and that kind of comes up whenever the district feels that they need to make a change. That would be something.
Do you just need to hear enough mumblings from the administrators where you bring it up, or?
So far, the mumblings I'm hearing only been, unless you guys have just been very good at keeping your mouth closed, has only been with the GPA, trying to get this one solved. We have, I know Kathy has worked very hard, and I think we've got a lot of the glitches worked out in Power School, and it's working pretty smooth at this point. And the last thing that I got, and Kelly couldn't be more thrilled, is the ROE audit comes February 11th and 12th. And my hat's off to her. She is walking around with boxes all day long, trying to put all of our evidence together. So, but that comes up February 11th and 12th, and she's been working very hard on that. So she's going down to Florida to recoup before that starts. That's it, superintendent. Oh, strategic plan update. All of our action teams have met. Do I have anybody from facilities here? No, that's Dale. But all of those action teams are formed and are now currently meeting. Am I correct on that? So we'll keep pushing those along and give you an update on that. But those committees are all meeting. So, good.
All right, we'll move on to community committee reports. Policy committee, Mr. Ward.
We're in the process of getting some good press releases from the district office. It's gonna be sometime that will be the building.
I'll give you one packet.
Oh, is that what
Facilities, we have received a January.
The other one might be right around the corner.
It's fine. As soon as you get them, we forward them on.
Social services, Mr. Ryder.
We haven't met since our last.
Facilities.
Like Mike said, we'll plan on the facilities meeting after we get the life safety back from Bull. Then we'll present something to the board after that meeting.
All right, CIA.
No meetings since our last open session, and no plans to have a meeting yet.
Okay. Move on to consent agenda. We have a motion to approve. Board, any questions? Move to approve consent agenda is. Roll call.
Mr. Harrowitz,
Yes.
Mrs. Maxey. Yes. Mr. Mahoney,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Reiniger,
Yes.
Mr. Ward,
Yes.
Mr. Ellingson.
Yes. Right, unfinished business. agreement for multi-district request for proposal for copiers.
Yeah, our copiers went out to bid. The bids came back. The prices were extremely high. The group of schools that we're all working with would like to reject those bids and go back out to bid. Julia, is there anything else you'd kind of like to?
Oh, we'd rather go out for proposal instead of a bid.
Gotcha.
Just go out for proposal and contact the 5 bidders that had bid before, plus we have one more that wants to be involved. So I'm just gonna do a proposal for them and sit down and talk with the one that I think will do the best job.
Costs were significantly higher, correct? Costs were came back significantly high.
Just because what the group wanted, not me, but the group of schools, we're going out individually now this time. But the group originally put together that they have to give us a bid with no charge for copies. And so they built in this astronomical amount into their lease that we're like, whoa, we can't afford this. I mean, and
Some bills tripled, right?
yes, and their comment was, well, we don't know if the Joe Blow business down the road, you're gonna say, hey, we don't pay for copies, come down and do all your copies on our copier. So they have to just build up. And I said, well, what if our technology were one-to-one? We could be doing less copies. So I'd like to go back and repose it where they can give us a flat, low price and then amount per copy. And I think it would be a little bit more competitive with that. I mean, we're not gonna roll this over until June anyway, so I have time.
Motion to reject the bids, right? Motion to reject the bids, right?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Maxey?
Yes.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Henniger?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Harrowitz?
Yes.
We'll move on to new business. The January 2016 bills.
Yeah, it was my turn to review the bills. I met with Mrs. Saunders and with my questions, and we got answers to everything. So it would be my recommendation to go through the January bills for payment. Go ahead and make that motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Roll call.
Mr. Mahoney?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Henniger?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Harrowitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxey?
Yes.
All right. Change dates of May and June board meetings.
Yeah, when I was looking and reviewing our calendar of board dates, May 17th falls right on high school graduation. We also are going to have to do a budget amendment. So my recommendation is, I can't push it back to the next Tuesday, which would be the 24th, because that's middle school graduation. What I'd like to do is move it to Monday, May 23rd, for our board meeting in May. I also would then move the June meeting back to the very end of June. That would allow us to do our budget amendment, presented in May, vote on it in June. And then that gives us our 30-day window covered there too. Plus, at the end of June there, a lot of our bills will be able to be approved by the board for the fiscal year at that time as well. So move the May meeting to Monday, May 23rd, and then the June meeting to June 28th. That's my recommendation.
Any discussion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. And then we're on to farmland rental agreement.
Yes. One of our farmers that leases our land came in and asked if the board would be willing to review the price that we're charging him per acre. So that the markets are a little more down this year. What I did was I presented you in your packet the information that you guys put together, a similar process of what you used the last time when you were looking to determine the price of per acre. And it came from the University of Illinois Extension Office, and we were charging $277 an acre. And according to their charts, it was deemed good, meaning 170 to 190 bushels per acre. They were recommending that it be charged at $267 per acre. So I'm open if the board is willing to accept that, or if they want to pick a different rate, that's fine too. But I did tell Mr. Britton that I would at least bring it back to you for review.
So 1 year agreement, Mike? Or what are you looking for?
I would probably do 1 year maybe, see what the market's due for. So at $267 an acre, is that where you'd like to stay? A little discussion of that, if you want to change it to. I'll put it back to you guys. You guys know that stuff better than I do.
I would pay 267, but if he's agreed to that, there's something to talk to him about this.
I haven't shared with him. The only thing I talked to Mr. Britton about was that said I'd bring it back for review. So his comment to me was, I sure liked it better a few years ago when it was $225, but I said, I'll see what they say.
I moved to set the land rent for $250 per acre for the upcoming year.
What was it?
$250.
With the motion,
I'll second it.
second. Any discussion?
Is this thinking to be neighborly versus a money-making venture?
I'm talking a lot of dollars.
And I think from what I hear from my clientele, that's probably where this year's rent has regressed back to on average. That's why it was the same number I had in my mind.
Roll call.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Haverly? Mrs. Maxey?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Motion carries. We are on to executive session. The appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity in collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees with their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. So moved. Roll call.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mr. Ward?
Yes.
Mr. Allison?
Yes.
Mr. Haverly?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxey?
Yes.
Mr. Mohawk?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Right. 16 steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a few days.
Oh,
Like asking to ask. So I don't know if you know this, district-wide public money, all the schools.
I kind of hear in your email, I see. it.
Yeah. And anyway, so I purchased the trophy. Yes. Yes, and I forget her name, but no, that was an interesting love journey.
So nice out here.
Yeah.
A lot of hot air. But the heat maybe works.
It's the
Oh, window.
I was like, all you can rub it out.
Joe's right. Joe's crawling.
You guys.
I know.
It's supposed to be a negotiation.
I'm usually almost never hot.
Yeah, where's Mary?
You're not supposed to say it.
I know.
Seriously.
It's good, Jeremy.
Motion to adjourn to executive session. Second. Motion and second. All right, we're on to gas and electric utilities contract.
Yeah, we'd like to enter into a new gas and electric contract with CenterPoint Energy for natural gas. We would extend the contract for natural gas from April 2017 to 2018 at 0.32 cents per therm. And electric, we would extend the contract from March 2017 to March 2018 at a 0.0037 per kilowatt hour.
Those are estimates,
Those are estimates.
because it's a commodity and it changes every day.
But if we can be close to that, there's savings for the district, as you can see for your handouts. That's my recommendation.
So do we put this out for bid?
Did I know?
So do we know if this is a good number compared to anybody else that would be doing it?
I talked to Vanguard.
Pardon?
I talked to Vanguard, they do the same thing. Jim and I talked with him as well. And I got some estimates from him as well. But like I said, those were that day's estimates. And
We're
They were-
by far exceeding our $25,000 limit. I guess I don't understand why we didn't put this out for bid. Or why we're not going.
well, I think you guys it did come to you. He did go out to bid. Jeff did. Last year in February, he came to your, and he did take it out for bid, and that was the best rate at the time that he had. And
After we just learned what we did in an executive session, I guess I'm troubled by the idea that we're gonna come out and give the same company an extension of the contract without actually putting it out for bid.
well, for the reason being, I would, is because I do think it's an outstanding company. And at the time that you entered into the very first contract, Jeff did not find out that he could leave the other one, which was Illinois Electric Cooperative or something, IEC.
Energy consortium or something.
Consortium. He just thought he could walk off of that, and he went into this agreement with CenterPoint, found out he had to give a 60-day notice. And when you go into this agreement, you agree to buy so many therms every single month. They look at past history, and you agree to buy so many therms. Well, they waived that for 60 days and didn't charge the school for those therms that they had bought already in the school's name. They sold that off, whether it was for a loss or what, but they did, and they didn't charge the school district for that. And I do believe in good faith, they did that in good faith, and so he had entered the contract in good faith before the agent did, and so I'd like to give him that opportunity to not walk away from that because of that.
Are we committing to another year?
You're committing to a year and a half on the therms, the gas, and 1 year more on electricity. And they're all cost savings. It's overall, you're gonna gain $26,000 for sure. I mean, that is the estimated savings, because we have, electric is, we use 3 million kilowatts a year, and it's a 3-cent gain of net, not gain, less that he's going to give us. So that was the $10,000 savings, and in therms, like I said, we're gonna bid in 175,000 therms, and so that's like a $16,000 savings. Will we spend more than that? We could. It's a cold winter, we could. If we spend less than that, then we buy it at that lower cost and we keep it in storage. So I mean, it's less than what it had before. I mean, they could have decided to fight, but they didn't
They could have decided to go
fight the contract. They didn't, they
So
stepped down.
could we still have that option.
Right, and I was thinking that you would have had attorney fees as well in that. So by them graciously stepping down, that's just my.
Costs were pretty competitive too with where the other ones were too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bid that Louis has laid it out for a year and a half.
Year and a half additions on the rooms and 1 year on the licensing.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Ward?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Beverly?
Yes.
Mrs. Maxey?
Yes.
Mr. Walpole?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes. All right, is there any further business to come before the board? We have a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Fantastic Tuesday night.